Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. First item on the agenda is public comments. Anyone virtually or in the audience want to come and make a comment? Hearing none. Then we'll move on down. I want to mention that this is just a work session. We won't take any official action this evening. We'll just be discussing topics. And the first thing, we have a presentation by Board Chair Brenda Mead. So we welcome you to be here. Thank you so much. And we look forward to your presentation. I think we have it ready to go for you.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
So does she, pardon?
You didn't say the tribe,
Coco Indian Tribe, I apologize. Chair Brendan Mead.
That's okay.
So you'll be able to forward this? Okay.
I'm going to pay attention, so hopefully I catch when it's time. Otherwise, we've got a
better watch.
backup plan. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're ready.
I love it. Well, good evening, everyone. Mayor Benetti, council members, it's good to see all of you here today. Thank you so much for allowing me some time to be with you all today. It's an honor. I don't know why it's taken me so long, but
And us.
it's good to see you all. I am going to really work hard to stay within my talking points today and not take up too much of your time, but there's so much really good things happening in our community that I can't wait to share with you, and I will try not to take up too much of your time. I am going to be presenting to you today an update on some of the work the tribe's been doing on the Cook River, as well talking about some of our efforts to develop natural resources, opportunities, and partnerships in Coos County. First, I have to say, Daisla. Greetings, friends. My name is Brenda Mead, and I am chairman for the Cook Indian Tribe, and again, it's an honor to be here with you all today. I want to emphasize the work that I will be sharing with you has not been done alone. We haven't taken these steps by ourselves. We've had a lot of community partnerships and community support that I'm really surprised and amazed at. I came here today, though, to talk about partnerships and what we are doing today that is making some important progress for the people and the environment on our South Coast. I always like to share with people that the Cook Indian Tribe is a potlatch tribe. And in the culture of my ancestors, it's always about sharing. It's about sharing good food and sharing our wealth as well. Traditionally, we would have huge feasts. We would be taking lots of time to prepare extravagant gifts and just spending time with our friends and family. The modern day expression of potlatch is even more ambitious for us, though. In the 21st century, being an Indian tribe presents opportunities to make good things happen. It's about working together with the broader community and making use of all of our resources to benefit not only our tribe, but our community that we live in. The first thing I want to share with you is what's been happening on the Cook River with our fall Chinook salmon. You may have read a little bit about some of the things we've been working on, but I wanted to give you a short synopsis on what's been happening and how we got here. Last spring and summer, we became aware of just how dire the situation was for fall Chinook salmon on the Cook River. In 2019, adult salmon returning to spawn was 275 for a count as of ODF&W's numbers. We had went from 30,000 returning salmon in 2010. That was a 99% decrease in our Cook River salmon in 10 years. They called it near extinction numbers. Not our words, theirs. Our Cook River has the worst returning salmon numbers in the state of Oregon. If you were to ask anyone in Burns, Bend, Eugene, what's the worst salmon return numbers in the state of Oregon, they'd probably say the Columbia, or they'd say the Willamette, but it was the Cook River. There were multiple issues facing our river Invasive species of smallmouth bass and striped bass are eating our smolt at a devastating rate. Seals eating the adult fish when they come back to spawn, a huge issue. Water temperature, of course, and sediment continues to be an issue. Inadequate hatchery production, and a need for better and more habitat in our watershed. It was clear that ODF&W didn't have a plan or a means to solve this issue. So we went to work, trying to understand the issues and deciphering what we could do, both short-term and long-term. And with that, in August, our tribal council declared in a declaration of an emergency. Our immediate efforts included dealing with the invasive species issues. We needed to work on making our river more hospitable for the hatchery fish that we were going to be collecting. We also reached out to every city council and county commissioner in the Coquille watershed. We did have some great successes, and working with ODF&W staff aboard an electrofishing boat, we were able to remove over 5,000 invasive species out of the river in a short amount of time. Tribal members, tribal employees, and community volunteers put in over 500 hours to capture broodstock for the Ferry Creek hatchery as well. The hatchery went from only 3 breeding pairs collected in 2022 to 24 pairs this last fall. It was tremendous progress, but it was also a disappointment. We fell short of our goal of 70 pairs. We did collect everything we could find. What it did give us, though, is it gave us 83,163, and we're counting each one, total fry into the system with different averages of returns. The rate is expected to be nearly 3,000 salmon returning into the system. It's not our goal, but it's a start. We've been encouraged by support from individual community partners, community members, as well as local governments. Our Coos and Curry County commissioners, both Port of Coquille and Port of Bandon, and every city council, again, in the Coquille watershed, all signed on with support letters as community partners. Thanks in part to widespread community support, we have negotiated a cooperative management agreement with the state of Oregon that will give us a local voice to decisions that are going to be made on our Coquille River. In the past few weeks, the tribe has also closed on a deal to purchase 120 acres of riverfront property on Lampa Creek on the Coquille River. This was identified by ODF&W as to be the prime acclimation site to ensure a larger return area. This will be a valuable site for future restoration work as well. Our next steps for 2022, we will resume work on behalf of our salmon. We will have the advantage of a bit more experience as well, and an earlier start as well. Starting in June, we plan to be back on the river with ODF&W and the electrofishing boat. We hope to remove even more of the invasive species than we did last year, with hopes of making this a more hospitable environment for our returning fish. We have now purchased our own electrofishing boat and hope that we will have it before the end of the year. We will also be setting up an acclimation site for the 83,000 fry to be released. More plans. We'll be out collecting more broodstock once again this fall. This is actually 2 projects this year. One part will be known as the Conservation Hatchery Broodstock Collection. That means working with the state, we will be collecting wild fish, taking them to the hatchery to spawn, and then releasing the juvenile fish to the upstream part of the river. The goal here is to build up the wild population as well. We will be managing holistically. The other part is called Harvest Augmentation Broodstock. That means collecting adult hatchery fish for spawning. The goal is to build up the overall number of fish available for harvest so that soon we will have enough fish for our river to once again be open for fishing. It's been closed for 2 years now. ODFNW's plan with the proposal they made, they guaranteed the fishing would not be open for 10 more years with their plan. We don't believe it's going to take us that long. Meanwhile, our staff are also working with the Coquille Watershed Association to apply for a grant to work on habitat restoration project that will replace the Colito tide gate and improve fish passage. We are also applying for grant funding to update the Coquille River Sub-Basin Agreement. I am so pleased to announce that we are also in the process of hiring additional staff. We are now creating a fisheries program in our Natural Resources Department. Please encourage anyone you know that might be looking for a job in this line of work. We'd love to have them. And we have a whole lot of information on our tribal website as well. Just keeping folks up to date on what the tribe is doing with the fish. For our volunteers, we have a ton of volunteers, as well as the job announcements are on there as well. By the end of June, we expect to sign a memorandum of agreement with the state of Oregon that will allow us to address the many issues on the Coquille River. This is a first step in a negotiation for co-management of our resources. This is about sovereignty. Our intentions are to be at the table when decisions are made so that we have a voice. Co-management means creating a partnership between the tribe and the state to protect and enhance fish and wildlife populations and habitat. Our agreement with the state will establish a partnership in which the tribe and ODFNW collaborate, share resources, and work as partners to develop and implement plans to protect and enhance fish and wildlife. We will no longer allow the state to look at our government as just an interested party. The geographic scope for the Coquille Indian Tribe is our 5-county service area in southwest Oregon. That is the area mandated by Congress in our Restoration Act. Within that area, we will identify specific locations to work on with ODFNW to restore fish runs, protect and expand wildlife populations, address habitat loss and climate change threats that are upon us, and seek harvest opportunities for our tribal members. It's important to recognize that the Coquille Indian Tribe never gave up our hunting and fishing rights. So this agreement provides a framework under which the subsistence and ceremonial harvest activities of Coquille tribal members currently managed by ODFNW will be primarily managed by the Coquille Indian Tribe. We will work with ODFNW to ensure that tribal managed harvests are consistent with conservation. It is important that you know that this does not diminish any harvest opportunities for Oregonians or affect other tribes' interests either. And we are not declaring any exclusivity of lands in this agreement. But co-management is not just for the benefit of the tribe. This is a way for us to harness the power of tribal sovereignty as an instrument of community progress. As a sovereign Indian tribe, legally recognized by the U.S. government, we have opportunities that are unavailable to other community entities. As a federally recognized tribe, we have the ability to bring in outside funds that wouldn't otherwise be available. As a sovereign Indian tribe, the tribe can make its voice heard in Salem and Washington, D.C. We are beginning to learn how to engage these opportunities for the best interest of not only the tribe, but the whole community. Another example of this is the Coos Bay Wagon Roads lands. You may have heard, the county has proposed a partnership to manage 51,000 acres of publicly owned lands. Coos Bay Wagon Roads. This is happening because the county has depended on these lands as a source of much needed revenue, but it no longer is receiving the revenues it needs. County leaders have concluded that they lack the legal and political leverage to accomplish these goals. The county has concluded that a partnership with the tribe might be the only way to return those lands to economic productivity for the benefit of the county budget, and the welfare of our community. I am not going to kid you. This proposal is huge for our tribe. Land is at the heart of who we are and what we aspire to. We lost our land in the 1850s, and when Congress finally restored our federal recognition, there was no land. Since then, we have established some significant fragments of our homelands, about 10,000 acres. We are proud of what we have done, but the county's proposal would be 5 times the increase of ancestral homelands managed by our tribe. It's not a done deal, not by a long shot. It has to make its way through Congress, and it's going to require legislation, and you all know how messy that can be. But I challenge you to think about how this would benefit our community and our citizens. After decades and decades of being controlled by federal bureaucracy, at least some of our local forest lands would be managed by local people with local interests at heart. It would be local jobs. It would be new revenues in our community. And I have to tell you, we are very proud of our forest management work. Our forest management has been recognized globally with FSC certification, nationally, and in Indian country, as successfully managing as a sustainable forest and for hitting all of our targets for conservation and our environmental goals as well. The Coquille tribe was the first tribe in the nation to have our Indian Trust Asset Management Plan recognized, which now allows our tribal government to oversee and approve the federal NEPA process. We now manage our forest activities under tribal law for these environmental protections and decisions. We strive for balance, recognizing the need for public access and the benefits of the land to our community, for the land, water, and resources we all need, while also recognizing we have the ability to manage for sustainable revenues for our governments and services. And the truth is we can have it all. Our management decisions are based on science. We look at what the impacts of our actions might be on that land before our activities happen. And then after activities, we look again and see if we address those issues and if we could do it better next time and in the best way possible. We operate our forest on an 80-year rotation sustainably for consistent revenues forever, while protecting our tribal, natural, and cultural uses, our homelands. If the county's plan comes to pass, we intend to manage Coos Bay Wagon Road lands the same as Coquille Forest, holistically, respecting a broad set of values. We would manage for fish and wildlife habitat, for wildlife protection, wildfire protection, for recreational access, for tribal subsistence and ceremonial access, and for economic benefits. And these lands would be open to the public for public use. And it is our hope that the habitat we will create will allow for great resources for our community, for hunting, fishing, and gathering. The agreement being considered after management costs are paid, the tribe and the county will split revenues 50-50. That's a good deal for everyone, because 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. So here we have 2 projects in which the tribe is coming forward to take local leadership for the benefit of the community. I think my ancestors would be proud. They understood community and they expressed it in the traditions of our potlatch. The Coquille tribe is trying to seize the opportunities wherever we see them and share those opportunities with the community as well. That's why we are trying to do these projects, and with all of you, the relationships with our local communities. So I came here today to update you on some of the work we're doing and also to plant a seed. I believe that our governments can work together and find opportunities. There are opportunities for federal and state funding where multiple government partnerships are successful, and there are many. I hope that we can find ways to address the needs in our community. And I'm very excited when I look at your website and I see the work that you all have planned for your strategic planning when you're talking about housing and you're talking about homelessness and you're talking about all the things that our tribal government deals with as well. And I just hope that we can find ways to bring some more resources and funding to our community by working together. And I am going to look to see if there are any questions or comments or anything I can answer for you today.
So council, any questions for Chair Mead?
How can folks help get involved in the Old Wagon Road effort?
Love that. Well, the county has the lead on this so far, but the county as well as the tribe are going to be reaching out to our legislators, our congressional representatives, and looking for their support. Initially, we have their support, but I know they always ask, how does the local governments feel about this? Have you talked to the local governments? And we're always really happy to add names to that community partner list. We'd love to have the city of Coos Bay as a partner and working together on this. We're excited because when the county and the tribe started talking about Coos Bay wagon roads, their worries were they needed it to be open to the public. And we reminded them that Cocoa Forest is open to the public. They were worried that maybe hunting and fishing wouldn't be possible for community members. Like, hunting and fishing happens on Cocoa Forest too. So I think it's really about just getting the word out. If people have questions and just looking for local support is what we would love to have. We reached out to, like I said, the city councils and the county commissioners on the Coquille watershed. Sorry we didn't come talk to you. We'd love to talk to you about the Coos River sometime because our return numbers on the Coos River wasn't good either, but they did offer letters of support. Those letters were amazing because it just showed the governor's office that we were all talking, and that now I'm making my rounds and giving them updates on where we've been, and it's been incredible the support that's come from just our community.
So, Madam Chair, would you like to receive a letter from the City of Coos Bay of support for the Wagon Roads project? And do you need that for the fisheries project, or?
We would love that. And I think Clark's been helping me with getting some draft letters out, just support for the tribe in co-management efforts, whether it's Fish and Wildlife or it's all one thing. It's all holistic management and really keeping it here at home and some decisions being made here.
Is the co-management agreement with ODF&W, is that the first of its kind with the tribe and the state?
Pardon?
Is the co-management plan with ODF&W, is that the first of its kind in Oregon?
There's been small agreements, but I met with the Oregon tribes actually about 2 weeks ago and let them know what we were doing. It was important for us to share with them some of the conversations that we were having. Tribes kind of get territorial, so it was important to recognize this isn't like taking exclusivity anywhere and just offering that please cut and paste this agreement because it's beautiful. It recognizes the tribe sovereignty, it recognizes just the need for partnership. And the state, one of the pieces in that agreement is the sharing of resources, which hasn't happened before. Which allows us to kind of have some say in the state's budget priorities for ODF&W, which is helpful when we can show it was the worst return numbers of salmon. We need to get some resources to our Southwest Oregon, and as well as the tribe. We have the ability to get federal grants that do incredible work, and it's about having the partnerships and boots on the ground folks to do it.
Thank you.
It's been great.
Madam Chair, speaking of boots on the ground,
Yes.
a lot of times getting the folks out into what you're seeing can lead to some opportunities as well. And we have a very engaged group of folks that are coming up through the ranks. Are there opportunities for them to volunteer for some of the abatement that you're doing of the, vegetation and brood stock, just so that they understand how important and critical it is in the
Yes,
community?
if you can send anyone our way, the tribe has on our website, Clark's done an amazing job on our website, by the way. You hit the button, the fish button, and it'll give you an opportunity to get updated emails, to put your name on a list to be called when we have volunteer opportunities. We're going to be putting fish in the river soon, and we're going to be dealing with invasive species, all starting in May. So we need all the volunteers we can get. We're really working closely with Coquille Step as well. They are coming up and wanting to do, again, Coquille High School project again, get that started. They're also looking at possibly Powers and Myrtle Point as well. Port Abandon has been incredible. They're talking about doing a bounty for fish on the river as well for the bass, which is, I think that's pretty neat. Port of Coquille is also stepping up, and they're talking about doing a derby this summer, and they're doing some fundraising right now too. So there's a lot of things happening, that there's a lot of opportunities for volunteering. So
So check the website.
check the website. There's a
Click on
lot of
fishing.
information.
Okay.
We'd love to put your support letter on there too.
And what's the website?
It's the Coquille Indian Tribe's website. Sorry about that. And there's a lot of information there.
CoquilleTribe.org.
Oh, sorry.
So for
Thanks,
the
Clark.
letter of support, do you have a form letter or something that you could send our way? And then we could
Yes.
address that at the council meeting? Okay,
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
you bet.
I just want to say thank you. This council has heard it many a time from this chair that we are so incredibly fortunate not only to have the Coquille Indian Tribe, but the Confederated Tribes of the Coos, Lower Umpqua, and Siuslaw Indians in this community. And so I am grateful for the work that you're doing on behalf of this community. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Anyone? Anyway, I just want to say thank you, and I look forward to our governments working together. I think this is a start in the right direction and long overdue. And so on my behalf and this council, anything we can do to participate and strengthen the relationship and benefit the community would be wonderful. So, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Thank
bet.
you, Mayor.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your work as well.
And I was just going to say, I would love it if we could do this regularly and get some updates.
Yeah. There's so
Right.
much happening. I would love that. Yeah.
If you could
Thank
turn
you.
this in.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so
Yeah, absolutely.
next item on the agenda is discussion regarding amending Coos Bay Municipal Code related to the vehicle for hire business. Chief Chapman, are you handling this?
Yeah, I'll take that. Good evening. So recently, city staff has reviewed the Coos Bay's current taxi regulation ordinance. And we are going to bring to you guys next council meeting a suggestion to look at revising that ordinance and adding some additional language in that ordinance to include vehicle for hire. I'll give you a little background. City of Coos Bay currently has a taxi cab ordinance that regulates how taxi cab companies and drivers of the taxi cab companies operate within the city of Coos Bay. In an effort to keep up with modern times, a consideration of a new ordinance is being proposed. This ordinance takes into consideration taxi cab businesses as well as some of the newer businesses such as Uber. And it also defines, it's also defined under the title vehicle for hire. The ordinance provides definitions to many of the names and titles used throughout the vehicle for hire industry. It places requirements on both the owner of the company as well as requirements on the driver of said vehicles. There's insurance requirements to protect the drivers, the owners, as well as the general public. The ordinance requires a background check be done on all drivers to ensure the safety of the public at large. It requires a business license to operate within the city of Coos Bay. And it regulates the number of vehicles that can be stored in a residential neighborhood. If the ordinance is agreed upon, by the Coos Bay City Council. The ordinance would replace Coos Bay's existing taxi regulation code section 5.30 and would go into effect 30 days after it was adopted. Some of the things I'd like to point out on the ordinance, and I think you have a copy of it as well, but I've just kind of highlighted a few things that I wanted to bring to your attention. In section 2, that starts the definitions. I think it's a pretty comprehensive list of different terminologies, titles that are often used in the vehicle for hire industry. It also includes what the definition of vehicle for hire is, vehicle for hire agency. It defines the driver. And then down in section 4, as I spoke earlier, it talks about the requirement of a business license. I think that's important to point out. Section 5, it kind of addresses the driver's requirements, valid driver's license, proof of insurance, liability insurance, stuff that is important. To include a background check, the background check on the operators or the drivers. It'll go back 7 years. It can be done by the private business owner, and then that proof can be provided, and or the city of Coos Bay could offer that background check as well. There's insurance requirements. These insurance requirements were vetted through our insurance agent, and these were the recommendations, so we listed those as well. Operational requirements, just a couple things to point out, that the company would be required to have some form of records management to be able to provide documentation of trips that they had taken over the last year. That could become important in some cases, as well as the taxi company would have to have their name, logo, phone number, some type of vehicle identification in plain sight, which makes it obviously more safe for the public. There's, in subsection D, there's a requirement for the use of the most direct route, and that's to limit the cost. And then there's an audit section which would allow the city, if needed, to come in and be able to audit that company up to 2 times per calendar year if needed. I spoke about the storage of vehicles. Section 11 I think is important. It requires that, or it doesn't allow any more than 1 vehicle to be stored or parked and in a residential area or neighborhood. What we didn't want to have is multiple taxi cabs or Uber vehicles parked in a residential neighborhood. And then section 12 it just goes through the violations, the penalties, what could happen, revocation, suspension of license, and whatnot. I should mention too, we worked jointly with North Bend city planner, Chelsea, Jim, and Coos Bay Police and North Bend Police. We all worked on this as well, and I think we came out with a pretty good ordinance. North Bend tweaked it a little bit to fit their city needs, and we tweaked it a little bit to fit our city needs, but really it is a very similar ordinance that I believe they've already enacted now. I'm open for any questions.
Questions, anyone?
I'm just thrilled. Thank you for bringing this to us. I know it's such a challenge, especially at the casino, to get taxis for people, and so the fact that this opens it up to other opportunities for people, I think, is great, and thank you for your work. I was just going to ask that question. Is North Bend working on this as well? So I'm thrilled that they are. My first question to you is, if we pass this ordinance, how quickly would it take to go into effect?
It would go into effect 30 days after you
30 days.
guys adopt it.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm guessing, Chief, that the old ordinance didn't allow any of the other operators besides taxi cabs. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. The older ordinance allowed us to do a lot of these things that we just mentioned, the background checks, but it was really exclusive to taxi cab companies. And, obviously with modern times, there's new and vehicles for hire in that industry, so we wanted to include that.
So have there been inquiries from others to, Uber or any of the other?
I would have to probably defer that. I don't see the business license, the applications unless they come over for a check, and so I'm not sure on that.
I could speak just to saying that the staff at the Public Works front counter indicated they've had a couple people. I don't know, a couple, is that 2, is that 4? I don't know, but there has been some increase.
Okay.
And because we didn't have regulations, they weren't given a license.
All right, thanks.
I think this might open the door for that opportunity.
Have we heard from the companies that are currently operating taxi cabs in our community at all? And have they been notified that this will?
I have not reached out to them. It really is no change for them. They were already following the background checks and requiring their drivers to have license and insurance and all that. Really didn't impact them a whole lot, but we certainly could reach out to them.
I think it would be good, only because it does affect them possibly economically, just to let them know that this is up for consideration.
Okay, absolutely. And I can bring back to you, we're gonna bring this back on April 5th. I can bring back any comments that I received from the owners of the taxi cab companies.
Or, Chief, you can tell them that it'll be on the agenda for discussion, so if they want to make public comments, that would be the time to do it, so.
Okay.
Besides any comments you may receive.
Absolutely.
So anything else, anyone?
Yeah, I have a question. How many vehicles are allowed?
In a residential?
Yeah,
Just one.
just one, even on the, what's it called, TNC or? The Ubers and the Lyfts, they can only have one, too?
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
The Uber and Lyft drivers, they can only have one, too?
Yes.
Because it's my experience in using those that it's usually young college kids that are doing it, and a lot of those college kids live together, so they would not, only one person in the household would be able to operate.
Yeah, I guess we'd maybe have to take a look at that case by case, and maybe that would be something we would bring to you guys and get your direction on that. I think the intention of that is to not have multiple vehicles stored in a residential neighborhood and create kind of a home business in.
No, I understand the taxi version of that, but these people are using their own vehicles for this service, and so those cars are gonna be there anyway, whether they're
Sure,
being used as a.
sure.
Well, and I was wondering how you would identify an Uber or, something similar.
Well, they put a sign up. When they're working, they put a sign up, and so, to
Yeah.
Rob's point, and Lyft, the same thing. So they're not working all the time, and so you might have 4 individuals in, say, an apartment complex or whatever.
So
And
it's
when
not
they go to work, they just-
permanently affixed, though.
Pardon?
It's
No,
not
it's not
permanently
permanent.
affixed.
Right, no, it's just something they put up.
I don't travel
and they
much,
say all of a sudden, I'm on and I'm working, and they start receiving calls, and same thing with Lyft.
A lot of them have a little blue light that indicates when they're on.
Right.
And so I think, if they're just a normal vehicle and they're not, marked out, other than when they're under, operation, I think that they wouldn't have any problems. But where it may get interesting is if you have multiple vehicles in one residential home and they're all working, that could prompt some neighbors to call in and be concerned. So, we didn't really necessarily look at it from that angle. That's a really good point.
Yeah, I think and I think Rob's correct. When the taxi, taxi service operates a little bit differently, and I definitely understand the point that you're trying to make. So you don't want 4 or 5 cabs sitting in an area. And normally, I think they don't always take them home, but I'm not sure. But that's a little bit different operation, I believe.
Would it be beneficial then to also put something out on our social media that this is going to be part of the discussion?
Good, sure.
Just so if somebody's been toying with the idea of doing it, or if they're already doing it and they don't have, the licensing to do that.
I
Sure.
can't tell you how many times we get the request at the mill for Lyft or Uber, and so I'm thrilled we're going down this road. I think it'll be great for the visitors of our area.
So the folks would need to have a business license, right?
Yes.
So maybe the wording could be something like 1 Uber per business license per registered location.
So they would have individual business licenses, even if there is a number of college students at one address, they still have to have their individual business licenses.
I actually think that would probably solve the problem there.
I got one.
Okay. Anything else? Good discussion. Okay, and so we didn't have listed on the agenda this evening, the city manager's report. And so it's on there, and this was supposed to be discussed prior. And I think we all have received, in fact, we all received, I believe, an email from someone from the Redfish Rocks Marine Reserve asking to make a presentation here to the council. No one responded on the council side, asking it to be put on the agenda. So if I understand correctly, if we want this to be presented now, it would have to be a unanimous decision or a majority?
The council rules just suggest that requests for non-city related items to be added to the agenda requires approval from the council as a whole before we place it on the agenda, so.
So, this, if I understand this, council regulation or rule came about because sometimes outside entities were coming in and discussing things that weren't pertinent to the city. And at the time, that's prior, I think anyone on this council, this was adopted, was to curtail that because it was taking away from doing council business. But with that said, it's still up to the council to decide if they want to move forward and have items of any certain type addressed. And so here we are.
Well, I apologize. Had I must have missed this email, so my apologies. Had I seen it, I would have asked to have brought this to the council. So I'm supportive of having them come make a presentation if the rest of the council is.
I don't remember seeing an email on it either, to be honest.
It's significantly outside of our,
In Port Orford? Stephanie, for me, it's a fishery. That's where I took it from, so the fishery has implications here.
So when you say the whole council, do you mean it's the majority of the council has to agree to it, everyone? Or what? How?
Without Nate's interpretation, and I don't have that legal backing,
is this something that we can correspond in an email to so you can get that interpretation?
yeah, and at this point, looking forward to agendas coming up, the April 5th agenda's pretty loaded, so we'd be looking at like the April 19th, April 26th work session. That would be another choice, whether you want it at a action meeting or at a work session.
So why don't we do this, if everyone's in agreement, send out an email with, make sure that you get the clarification on how many of the council, or it has to be all the council, and ask them to respond back in kind if they, not to everyone, when you respond, just respond back to the email saying that I want this to be on the council and go from there. How about that? And then it'll be on the April 19th if it's agreed.
Yeah, that would be the earliest.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right? Is everyone all right
I'm
with
not
that?
as much opposed to a work session. I mean, it's not something that's actionable anyway by the council.
Right. No, I mean, there's
But
nothing we can do on this. This is
I
just a
think we have a lot of
presentation.
business that
Right.
we need to take care of at our
Mhm.
regular meetings.
I agree with Councilor Kilmer. I think a work session would be more appropriate.
Yeah, and so we can do that if it's agreed upon. How's
Okay.
that? That's even better.
But don't reply to everyone, just
No,
reply
you have
to
to,
whoever sends
because
the
then
email.
we're deliberating
Right.
illegally. So, you just hit reply, not reply all. I think that will work, unless if Nate says that won't work, then we'll have to go another route. Okay. Have a discussion about it, which we can do on the council meeting, if that's necessary. All right, council comments or anything on this beautiful day? You know, we can stay in here longer if you like. No? All right, thank you so much, and we'll see you at the next council meeting on April, what is it? 5th, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.